and welcome to this week's episode of Real Crime. If I'm not mistaken, it might be the last episode of Real Crime. At least for now. This is the show where I tell you the plot of a horror movie like it's true crime, so that you can feel like you're enjoying true crime content without any of the sort of ethical or potential moral dilemmas that can come with true crime content. I also do my makeup at the same time. I really struggled with makeup for this one. It might end up looking the same as the rest of the videos. If it does, I apologize, but I'm trying over here. Today, we're talking about one of the most chilling cases out of all of them, the Haddonfield Murders. These murders were committed by a masked figure known only as Michael Myers, not to be confused with Canadian icon Mike Myers. It all started in 1963, when a small-town Halloween night experienced an unspeakable tragedy. So, let's go all the way back there. So on October 31st of 1963, then 6-year-old Michael Myers shocked his community in Haddonfield when he stabbed his sister Judith, brutally killing her. Judith was a teenage girl. I think she was getting ready for like a Halloween party or something. I'm not sure, I don't remember exactly, but when police showed up at his house, they found Michael outside, still holding the knife that he had used to kill his sister. To some, this seemed like a random act of violence, but later investigations, especially ones that sort of looked into Michael's early life, could kind of tell that this was on the horizon. Michael essentially grew up in a broken household marked by neglect and abuse. He had a single mother that was doing her best, but she often had to leave him in the care of a really cruel and abusive stepfather. And there are also reports that his older sister, Judith, wasn't really all that nice to him either. Like many serial killers both before and after him, it's said that Michael showed early signs of sociopathy. He's described as withdrawn and troubled and known to have frequent violent outbursts. Immediately after the murder of his sister, Michael was taken to Smith's Grove Sanitarium and placed under the care of Dr. Samuel Loomis. The case of Michael Myers would ultimately end up defining Dr. Loomis's career, as he tried to cure Michael Myers and then eventually just did his best to keep him locked up. Dr. Loomis would later describe Michael as pure and simply evil. Their relationship was ultimately complex and went kind of beyond typical doctor-patient relationships, with Loomis becoming essentially obsessed with Michael and what made him tick. He tried every therapeutic method available for Michael: counseling, observation, and even experimental treatments. Initially, he saw Michael as a deeply damaged boy that he wanted to help, but over time, Loomis grew convinced that what was inside Michael was something that could not be cured. I have a quote from Dr. Loomis for you. He said, "I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face, and the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 years trying to keep him locked up, because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil." So as Loomis just explained, Michael was locked up for 15 years, so 15 plus 6, that means he'd be 21. And during those 15 years, he remained silent and unresponsive. But then, on October 30th, 1978, during what should have been a routine patient transfer, Michael escaped. Michael took his newfound freedom, stole a car, and headed down to his hometown of Haddonfield, Illinois. On the way, he picked up a mechanic outfit to wear and stole a Halloween mask, the Halloween mask that would eventually define his image. The Halloween mask that is actually a Captain Kirk, like a William Shatner mask, painted white. Did you know that? How cool. His presence back in Haddonfield is described as almost ghost-like, just silent, waiting, and watching. Immediately upon returning home, he goes back to his old house. And while he's there, he's just kind of silently in the house, as he does, and a young teenage girl walks up to the house, and we know that she places keys in the mailbox. She's walking along with a young boy, walking him kind of halfway to school, and Michael sees this girl and this young boy, and he locks on. That young girl is Laurie Strode. Later at school that day, Laurie is sitting in class, and she looks out the window and she swears she sees Michael staring at her. Then later on her way home, she swears she can see him staring at her again. And overall, it's Halloween at this point, and she's generally feeling a little freaked out. Now, that little boy that she walked to school that day, his name is Tommy Doyle, and she regularly babysits him for his parents. That night, Halloween night, she is scheduled to babysit him as well, and her friend Annie is scheduled to babysit another local girl named Lindsay Wallace. Now, Annie is the sheriff's daughter, and she wants to hang out with her boyfriend. So, like the Girl Scout that she is, Laurie takes Tommy over to Lindsay's house and watches both kids so that Annie can go out. Unfortunately, as Michael has locked on to Laurie, and Annie is associated with Laurie, that puts Annie in Michael Myers' path. And she doesn't even get to make it to her dude. She goes to drive to her boy's house. Okay, she's in the car. And she gets in. And unbeknownst to her, Michael was in the backseat. And he strangles her and then stabs her. And that is the end of Annie. So Bob and Linda are Michael's next victims. They're also friends of Annie's. And they are also together. And they are doing the do. Once they're finished, Linda sends Bob downstairs to get a beer. When Bob goes downstairs, he is killed by Michael. Silently. He gets strangled up on the wall. And that's the end of Bob. Michael then makes his way up to Linda wearing a sheet over him. And so Linda thinks it's Bob at first, kind of playing a trick or trying to be silly or whatever. And so Linda picks up the phone and she goes to call Laurie. But immediately as soon as Laurie answers, Michael grabs the phone cord and strangles Linda. So all Laurie can hear on the phone are these, grunts and moan sounds. And so she thinks Linda has called her in the middle of something else. Although it does freak her out a little bit, but she still just kind of, hangs up. By the time Laurie realizes that something is really up, she's next on Michael's list. Michael eventually finds Laurie at the Wallace's house, where she's watching both kids. And he attacks her, slashing at her with his knife. But Laurie fights back, and she manages to injure him, and keep the kids she was babysitting safe. Laurie's the original badass. The fight eventually spills onto the streets, and Laurie sends the kids to go find help. The kids find Dr. Loomis, because he's been kind of trying to find Michael. He knew Michael would go back to Haddonfield, so he's trying to look for him, and the kids find him, and they bring him back to the house, just as Michael has Laurie kind of cornered. Loomis shoots Michael, hitting him 6 times, and in the process, throwing him out the second-story, window. There's, a balcony. He falls out of there. But then, when the police arrive, just moments later, Michael's body is gone. I yapped too much in the first half of this video, and my makeup's not done. The case of Michael Myers left Haddonfield in terror. How does a 6-year-old boy become a remorseless killer? And more importantly, how did he vanish after being shot multiple times? Some believe that Michael was more than just a man. He was a force of evil that couldn't be killed. For the survivors of that Halloween night in 1978, one thing was clear. Haddonfield would never be the same. And that's the story of Michael Myers and the Haddonfield Murders, told as if it were a true crime story. Thank you so much for watching this video, and more importantly, thank you so much for watching this series as a whole. I really appreciate you. If you like these, we might do more of them in the future. If not, oh well, at least I had fun doing it, you know? This was the best I could come up with for a Michael Myers-inspired look. It's kind of like the dark of his mask, right? Sort of. I don't know. Please make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Please subscribe if you have not subscribed already. I hope you have a very happy, fun, and safe Halloween. And don't forget, you never know who could be watching. I will see you in the next video. Bye! Now, this video in particular is interesting, so I just wanted to address this right at the very end here. For the Halloween series enthusiasts like myself, one thing that is clear is that the Halloween series timeline is a mess. Sometimes Laurie and Michael are siblings, sometimes they're not, blah, 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 blah. So for this video, it's kind of just my faves. That's the deal. We don't really know what's canon in the Michael Myers universe at this point anymore. Especially with the new trilogy, man, I'm just taking my favorite part and putting them together. I like the idea that they weren't siblings, because it makes Michael scarier, and because it seems more random. I don't like the idea that he'd be chasing her still 40 years later, in the new version. Her specifically, I mean. I think he would go back to Haddonfield, but I don't know that he cared about Laurie. I know that the Rob Zombie Halloween movies are kind of, people love them or hate them, and I quite like the first one, not so much the second one. So I threw in some of the Michael backstory from the Rob Zombie movie into this video because I think it adds some context that was maybe missing from like the regular franchise as to Michael growing up and maybe what fostered what he became. You know what I mean? It's a nature versus nurture thing, and I think most people would agree that Michael had evil in his nature, but I also think maybe like a bad childhood like he has in the Rob Zombie version would nurture the evil, right? So I don't know. I just kind of wanted to take both elements of the Rob Zombie one and obviously most of the original 1978 movie, and put them together in a way that I like. I was the master of the Halloween universe. I would, in one of them, show backstory the way Rob Zombie does, but I don't know that I'd make them siblings. They are siblings in Rob Zombie's version. So I've kind of made my own version, is what I'm trying to say. So if anyone wants to actually about Michael Myers in the comment section below, I already know. And I don't care. But I just thought I'd add that in here as sort of my disclaimer at the end. You know how it is. Okay, I'm done yapping now. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!